Good evening. I'd like to call the February 21st, 2017 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with the roll call?
Mayor Coombs.
Here.
Council members Bagley.
Here.
Christensen. Here. Finley. Here. Moore.
Here.
Peck. Here. Santos. Here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, let's stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone wish to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call, public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have an opportunity to speak during final call, public invited to be heard, or on the public hearing opportunities. So there's no meeting minutes to approve. Don, are there any agenda revisions?
There are none.
Is there a report from the city manager?
No report, Mayor, Council.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read a proclamation designating the week of February 19th through the 25th, 2017 as Innovation Week in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas innovators, okay, I'll start from the beginning. A proclamation designating the week of February 19th through 25th, 2017 as Innovation Week in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas innovators, entrepreneurs play a pivotal role in strengthening the economic health of Longmont, whereas Colorado is second to none in concentrated talent, is a hub for innovation industries, is ranked as the 5th most entrepreneurial state, and continually ranks among the top states to launch a startup business, and whereas Colorado strikes to be a community that fosters, embraces, and supports innovation from startups to industry, and whereas dozens of individuals and organizations contribute to the economic vitality of Longmont through the efforts to develop a strong, supportive ecosystem for innovators, and whereas organizations that have contributed significantly to building this innovation ecosystem in Longmont include the Tinker Mill, Startup Longmont, the St. Francis Valley School District and Innovation Center, Longmont EDP, CoSolve, Front Range Community College, Longmont Downtown Development Authority, the Longmont Area Chamber of Commerce, the Latino Chamber, the Longmont Community Foundation, and Nextlight. And whereas the City of Longmont wishes to recognize and express our gratitude to these organizations and individuals within them for their hard work in building the culture of innovation in Longmont. Now, therefore, I, Dennis L. Coombs, Mayor, by the virtue of authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim the week of February 19th through the 25th, 2017 as Innovation Week in Longmont, and encourage all of our citizens to recognize and celebrate the innovative organizations and individuals in Longmont who are strengthening our community's economic health. So I don't know if there's, come on down, and would you like to say a few words at all? Okay.
City Council members. I'm Janine Lettingham with the Longmont Economic Development Partnership. I'm Director of Local Business and Startup Community Development. And on behalf of the Longmont Economic Development Partnership and Jessica Erickson, President of the Longmont EDP, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Coombs, for the proclamation recognizing these organizations in Longmont and the many, many people behind these organizations that are working to support innovation and the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Longmont. To that end, I wanted to highlight a few statistics and key milestones achieved by these various organizations in 2016. As you know, Longmont continues to have the second highest patent rate per 10,000 residents at over 50 patents per 10,000 residents, far surpassing the Colorado patent rate of 10 per 10,000 residents. As a county, Boulder County has the highest rate of self-employed residents at 16%. This is compared to the U.S. self-employment rate of 9%. Boulder County saw a nearly 2% growth rate in businesses employing under 10 employees as compared to the Colorado rate of 1.5%. Nationally, that growth rate in businesses employing under 10 employees is 1%. Startup Longmont hit the huge milestone of having 1,000 meetup members. There were an average of 68 attendees to each Longmont New Tech meetup, and almost half of those were driving in from cities outside of Longmont. Longmont Startup Week 2016 had 2,000 attendees who attended 80 events throughout the city over the course of 6 days. CoSolve, a for-profit co-working space, opened its doors in the former Times Call building in 2016. It now has 25 members working out of that space, and those companies are doing things in areas like geospatial intelligence, Internet of Things, cloud security, software and game development, and financial software. CoSolve also hosts groups that range from advanced data science meetups to smart cities meetups to traditional chamber networking events. Startup Longmont also holds its major events at CoSolve. The Tinker Mill now has over 500 members and was invited to attend the Nation of Makers meeting at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. The Latino Chamber organized and held the inaugural Colorado Latino Festival in Longmont, and it held its annual business conference in Rise Entrepreneurial Challenge, highlighting entrepreneurial teams from the St. Vrain Valley School District. We're all thrilled that St. Vrain Valley School District won voter approval of its bond to build a new innovation center. The St. Vrain Valley School District Aquafrog team was highlighted at the Colorado Tech Summit, and the district launched its first class of P-Tech students. That's just to name a fraction of the accomplishments of the St. Vrain Valley School District. The Longmont EDP has hosted 3, actually now 4 as of today, innovation tours to highlight the entrepreneurial community and innovation assets in Longmont. We sponsored both New Tech Longmont, Longmont Startup Week, as well as we served on the content committees, we served as moderators and on panels. The Longmont Economic Development Partnership recently took over management of the Ignite Fund, and in 2016, the Longmont Community Foundation, Tinker Mill, City of Longmont, and Longmont EDP awarded $20,000 in grants to 2 startup businesses in Longmont. Nextlight, as we all know, has nearly completed its build-out of the gigabit network with over a 50% take rate. Nextlight was touted as having the 3rd fastest internet upload and download speeds in the nation by PC Magazine. The Longmont Area Chamber of Commerce is actively supporting startups through its Leads Group and advocacy work. The DDA continues to support new startup businesses and creative and culinary businesses through its grant programs, its creative district designation, and the DDA master planning update efforts. And finally, last but not least, the Front Range Community College continues to support our employers and entrepreneurs through its web lab programming boot camp classes, its advanced machining classes and certifications, and its fermentation and entrepreneurial classes. 2016 was indeed a year in which many Longmont organizations did much work to advance Longmont's innovative companies and the entrepreneurial network. So we want to thank all those organizations, and this week is Innovation Week, is filled with events. We started the week with a proclamation event at the St. Vrain Cidery, one of our newest startups in Longmont in the same Times Call building. Today we had an all-day innovation tour to highlight our innovation assets. Tomorrow night is a new tech meetup. It's focused on e-commerce tech. On Thursday we have a Mayor's Summit event, and then there's unity in the community. So great week of events, and we thank you again for the proclamation.
Thank you for being here. Jessica, did you want to add anything? Or you,
I think she did a great job.
okay.
He was on vacation for a
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Take one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for first call, public invited to be heard, Karen Dyke. So please come down and state your name and address.
Karen Dyke, 708 Hayden Court. Mr. Mayor and council people, I would like to just have a quick thank you to the city for bringing forth the position of opposition on HB 171124. There are a lot of issues facing this state on fracking issues, a lot of things that the legislature could be working on, such as the recent study that showed an increase in childhood leukemia in communities that had fracking with them. And so there's many things they could work on, and this is probably clear to the bottom of the list. So thank you for your opposition for that vote tonight.
Thank you. Lynn Lowry. Okay. That ends first call, public invited to be heard. So now it's on to the consent agenda.
Mayor, item 8A on the consent agenda is ordinance 2017-10, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 10.50 of the Longmont Municipal Code on disposition of property. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for March 7th, 2017. 8B is request legislative position of support on House Bill 17-1083 concerning municipal judge advisement for traffic offenses. 8C is request legislative position of opposition on House Bill 17-1124 concerning local government liability for fracking bans on oil and gas moratorium. 8D is request position of opposition to House Bill 17-1162 concerning action that can be taken against any individual who fails to pay their traffic violation. Item 8E is request legislative position of support on Senate Bill 17-34 concerning disaster emergency transfers from county general funds.
Councilmember Christensen.
I'd like to pull items B and D just for brief discussion.
Okay. Councilmember Santos.
I'd like to remove A.
All right. Councilmember Finley.
I'd like to remove C.
All right. I move that we move the the consent agenda minus A, B, C, and D.
Second.
All right. Let's vote on the consent agenda minus A, B, C, and D.
Just waiting for your vote, Councilmember Christensen.
You're not going to, we need your vote. All right, that passes 7-0. Okay, so now we move on to
Mayor,
ordinance.
item 9A, ordinances on second reading, is ordinance 2017-08, a bill for an ordinance approving an economic incentive agreement with J.M. Smucker LLC.
Okay, there's no questions for council. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 2017-08, and it looks like Ron Krenzel signed up for.
Ron Krenzel, 12191 North 61st Longmont, a little different venue, a quiet night. What sort of keyed me to these comments was when I saw that the city was giving incentives to smokers to come here for about $6.5 million, I think that was the number I heard. And obviously, you know where my love is, and that's at the airport. And I'm always hoping that somehow we can change your attitude about it and we can move forward with it. You know that it's been difficult for people to build hangars at the airport, to get the runway extended and all that, but that's not important. I'm talking about something different tonight. But it is important in that I think it's totally irresponsible for a city of Longmont to give $6.5 million to a company like Smucker. Have you ever read the label of this stuff? This is not food. This is death. There is no food value whatsoever in this. And for a company like Smucker's to come here and for you, the city of Longmont, to put $6.5 million into this product is irresponsible. If you would give 2 of these to your child every day, you should be accused of child abuse. This contains nothing but sugar and fat. It is not a food product. We certainly all put a little jam on our toast. I think that's what these guys make, and that's fine. But you're committing to building a factory here, and I don't know if you've tasted this or read the label or eaten it or anything. It's the largest. I was interested tonight about the innovative. I was issued 2 patents this year on glenohumeral subluxation reduction for stroke patients and arm positioning for stroke patients and shoulder support. I have sat day after day after day at the Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital looking at people who ate this shit all their life.
Excuse me. Point of order.
That's okay. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. And if we don't start as a country making a conscious decision to change what people eat, our healthcare costs will continue to accelerate, our quality of living will continue to decline, and I understand your economic motivations, and I understand, you know, if they don't build it here, they'll build it someplace. But I'm not sure that it's in best interest of all of us to continue to try to support this sort of a food product. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on ordinance 2017-08. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'd remind the public that vulgarity is not appropriate at a council meeting. So when you come up and speak, you're abiding by the rules that we have in place for that. We're not giving $6.5 million. Sean, would you like to go over about how all that numbers are coming about, the incentive package, so folks can understand, or Harold or Jessica, because we're not writing a check for $6.5 million, which I would agree, you know, the airport needs to have some improvements, but we're not just writing a blank check and having Mayor Coombs and the finance director sign something. And then I'll address the food product itself.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'll skip to, do you want me to skip to just the details of the incentive agreement? Okay.
Because apparently a member of the public thinks we're writing a check.
Okay, so I will happily review the details of the incentive agreement that was negotiated with Smucker. The estimated value of the incentive agreement is indeed about $6.5 million, $2.5 million of that coming from development fee rebates, about $3 million of that coming from rebates, of business personal property tax, and just under $1 million coming from infrastructure cost concessions related to public improvements that are required on the site in order to make it developable for this or any project. And so to bring some more detail to those different components of the incentive agreement, the development fee rebates include rebates of building permit and plan review fees, as well as city sales and use tax on construction materials, the 2.2% non-earmarked portion of city sales tax. Those are revenues that, if not for this project, wouldn't be recognized and are being rebated after recognized as a result of this project. The business personal property tax rebate agreement is to rebate 100% of business personal property tax in years 1 through 4 for each of 2 phases of the project, if and when those phases happen. So phase 2 never happens, the rebate never happens. And then the infrastructure cost concessions, again, are related to public improvements on the site, waiver of an escrow contribution to a future road improvement that may or may not ever be required or ever be completed, city rebate of the company's financial participation for greenway improvements on the trail adjacent to the site, as well as reimbursement of the portion of a traffic signal at Highway 119 and Fairview should it be deemed necessary by a traffic study that's currently, I believe, being conducted. And so when we look at the net impacts of that, both fiscal and economic of the project, as well as the net of the rebate, the city will recognize before the incentive $5 to $6 million in the first 10 years of the project in real property tax, about $4.2 million in business personal property tax revenue, $140,000 transportation community investment fee, $2 million in electric franchise fee revenue over the first 10 years, totaling between $11 and $12 million in direct fiscal impact on the city of Longmont. Net of the proposed $6.5 million in rebate incentives, you're looking at between about $5 and $6 million in net positive revenue to the city after the rebates. We also take a look at the economic impact, which is the broader impact on the larger community, so not related to direct fiscal dollars into city coffers. We anticipate about $3 million in local construction-related materials spending and payroll during construction of the project, and 650 construction jobs that will come from the local area or be employed by individuals from the local area. $166 million in local operations spending during that same 10-year period, 87 additional on top of the 500 anticipated jobs related to the project, 87 additional indirect and induced jobs related to the project, and about $4 to $5 million in indirect and induced wages related to the project. And so you can see the net fiscal and economic impacts far outweigh the rebates that will be given on revenue that, again, would not occur if not for this project anyway.
And none of those rebates can go into the enterprise fund in which the airport is a part of. Am I correct, Harold? Harold's nodding yes. So I just wanted to point that out, that we're not writing a check, and any money that we would possibly have wouldn't be going to the airport. Airport's an enterprise fund, which I'm sure the member of the public is quite aware of that. He's been to many of the airport advisory board meetings. I also take offense to being called abusing my children. Yeah, my kids love Uncrustables. Whether you like it or not, that's your opinion, and I respect your opinion. But I'm not going to sit up here and be called a child abuser. So let that sink deep. Don't care. Don't care. So I move ordinance 2017-08.
Moved and seconded. Let's vote. Passes 7-0. All right, who pulled item A? Okay. Councilmember Santos.
Just an observation, and I made this observation last week when we got our packet. And I talked to the city attorney, and this is how it is actually written in code. You read this ordinance. Ordinance amending Chapter 10.50 of the Municipal Code on disposition of property. Sounds like we're getting rid of a piece of property that the city owns, not personal property that residents or other, people have left at, whether it's the rec center, at pools, or what have you, golf courses. I would hope when it comes back for second reading, I have no problem with the ordinance. I think it's appropriate. My problem is with the title. If we're going to be, again, I understand it's in the code that way, but apparently the code needs to be changed. And I would hope that if we're going to amend it, that perhaps we should also amend how this is described. Because I was anticipating people coming up, oh, so what piece of property are you getting rid of this week? And how is that going to go through disposition of however? So the title is just very misleading. I move 8A.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. I was going to wait till second reading, but I guess when you read the ordinance, or when I read the ordinance, so let's suppose you find a Rolex, right? And so someone finds a Rolex, and when I read the ordinance, we're just going to say, hey, people, we found a Rolex. And how is that going to get people to find their property?
That's actually going to go to the police department, and that's where we go through the more exhaustive piece of notifying the public. Because
that's what I'm saying. If somebody notifying the public that, hey, we have a Rolex, and are we going to describe it? I guess my question is, what are we going to do? If it's got value and we tell everybody to comply with the law so we're not taking property, my question is, what are we going to do to notify the public that we have valuable property so that we're not giving away their property? What I'm saying is that the ordinance might be defeating the ultimate purpose, and it all depends on, I'm just curious how we're going to announce that we have something of value.
Mayor Pro Tem Bagley, Sean Lewis, Assistant City Manager. This particular ordinance doesn't actually change the way we deal with items of value. So there is a process spelled out in code where if the item has a certain value, it has to be posted. What this does is really just provide our facilities with a more consistent method with regard to how we do that. So different city facilities, depending on the value that they assign to a piece of property that was lost or abandoned, sometimes dealt with that in different ways. The valuable property, like the one that you're describing, there will be no change in the way those are disposed of. This is really talking about items that maybe don't have as much value. Right, that we would in the past have to have, for instance, in some cases posted that in the newspaper. We haven't always done that, but this will allow us to have a more consistent way to deal with items of lesser value. It does not change your example of how we deal with things of greater value. Karen, would you like to add to that and or correct?
Karen Roney with Community Services, and you did a fine job. And I think to Council Member Bagley's point is that for those items, so we have talked about as staff, how do we list those so that we don't give away too much information, so that people have to come and really describe what their item is to protect us from giving the wrong item to the wrong person. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion. It's been seconded. Let's vote. That passes 7-0. Okay, so we're on to item B. Councilmember Christensen.
I do understand
Oops.
that this. Okay. I do understand that this this position that we are being asked to support does present an extra cost to the city government. And the idea is to separate out more serious offenses from lower ones. But the truth is that most of the offenses that happen in the city are lower offenses, traffic offenses and that sort of thing. If there were, say, my concern is that the reason this came about is that there are many, many people in our society, especially people under 25, who have no idea how much trouble they can get into by just accepting one traffic ticket after another, that they need advisement, as do people who have come to this country. That's why I believe it was the ACLU who put this forward. And so I honestly can't be supportive of this. But I understand how most other people probably are. That's okay.
I guess I'm confused. I thought we were talking about B, but you seem to be talking about D. Okay. All right. Okay, advisement. Okay, got it. Go ahead, Sandy.
Thanks, Mayor Coombs, members of council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. This particular bill, House Bill 17-1083, really is talking about making sure that the municipal policies for traffic offenses stay in the municipal realm. So what happened as an unintended consequence of last year's 1309, which requires advisement for folks that are going to be in municipal courts, part of what happened is that it lumped all courts together and said you all have to use the same exact processes. The difference is that county courts actually have a more steps in their process than municipal courts do. So what this particular bill does is it strips out the requirements for municipal courts to act like county courts when it comes to traffic offenses. People still have to have representation if they desire it. So the heart of 1309, which was the ACLU's bill last year, is still intact. What this does is this kind of rips out the municipal courts and puts their streamlined processes back the way that they were, as opposed to lumping them in and making them act like they're county courts. So just to clarify that, the effects of 1309 from last year requiring to be able to have some advisement if you're in court still stands. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that.
You're so welcome.
You have to turn on your mic, please.
And when we get to D, there's some other pieces that go along with that for sure. It seems like the courts have been in the state legislature a lot lately, which I thought was funny.
Can you turn on your mic, please?
In that case, I'm in support of it.
Okay. Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move 8B.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. That passes 7-0. And was it Bonnie that pulled? Go ahead. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I have a question. This bill will die. We don't need to take a position on it. But wouldn't this, I guess I would ask City Attorney Eugene May. Eugene, aren't cities already liable for takings if we don't allow folks their property?
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney, if the city were to take property, they would be liable. I don't know of any case law that says that these fracking bans or moratoria are takings of property.
Taking of mineral rights.
Correct. I don't know of any case law that says that fracking bans or moratoria are taking.
So there's been no case law on that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I don't know why we should take a position on a bill that is already going to die. And
Councilmember Christensen.
Well, I think we need to take a position on this because this bill comes up nearly every year by Perry Buck, wife of Ken Buck, and by Tim Neville, and we have no idea what might happen. So I do think we need to take a position on this, which I consider just a harassment and threatening bill.
Mayor Coombs?
Yes, go
Could
ahead.
Could I do a quick clarification as well? Again, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. As far as House Bill 171124, this is exactly the same bill as came up last year. The council opposed it last year. In speaking with Dan Kramer about it this afternoon, because we kind of had a final powwow before council meeting, I think part of the concern in this particular case, so you're not under a moratoria currently. You don't have a fracking ban at this time because the Supreme Court overturned it. But I think there is some concern that this could spill over and create different issues for the regulations as well. So if it's one thing to say, if this bill then essentially creates the takings right, as Eugene said, the reason that it's there is because there is no case law around that today, and this is trying to clarify that it is that. If that does happen, that may spill into different pieces around, well, if we regulate when, where, and how, then that may also be perceived as a taking. And so I think that for some folks, they have said, oh, we're just jumping on the bandwagon around other people with their moratoria. But I think that there's a real danger to what might happen to Longmont and its regulations if it's passed. That's why it's here in front of you today. Of course, it is completely your decision on how you decide to handle it.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I wasn't going to say anything, but since it's pulled, what the heck. I think the problem just with the bill in general is mineral rights technically aren't worth anything until you actually extract the minerals. So they don't, people who own minerals, you don't pay taxes, property taxes on them because they have not a lot. And my point is that it's not a lot. And so my point is that until it's actually taken out of the ground, they're not worth anything. And so I think it's political. I think that it's of no consequence. And even those, even back when we had our now defunct ban on fracking, my thought back then was even, but our police and our fire departments and our cities stand ready to answer the call when other municipalities can't handle disasters, whether it be an oil fire or whether it be a leak or whatever. So I have no doubt that it's not going to pass, but I'll vote for it out of symbolism, I guess.
Okay, I guess I'd like to move for support for opposition on HB 17-1124. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. And that passes 5-2 with Councilmember Santos and Councilmember Finley voting no. All right, so now it's on to item D. Yes. Councilmember Christensen.
So on item D, I just have a question. I understand why the judges need this, because from my own personal experience, there are many people, young people particularly, who, unless they are told that their driver's licenses will be removed, they will not, they just never get around to paying their fines. And, you can't just, it's the only thing that they take seriously other than actually being thrown in jail. However, is there a time for them to remedy this? It should be something like 6 weeks. I know that in Adams County it is that. This is a statewide law, though, isn't it?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Christensen, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. On Senate Bill 34, on House Bill 1162, what this is doing is taking away the ability to be able to pull their driver's license if they don't appear. It's a pretty long process. I'm not exactly sure of the time frame. What this bill would do is take that away, that opportunity away for judges to be able to either suspend their license or make it so that they can't renew a license. That's not usually the first to jump to, according to Judge Frick. He said that that's really what they do after there's been a no-show, or if there's nothing that's happening in that respect. Oftentimes, if people can't pay their bills, he works on payment plans with them, and that's sort of the go-to for municipal courts as opposed to just yanking people's licenses. What this bill would do is say you can no longer do that, but instead you can collect their traffic violations through their tax refund. And so It'd be great if everybody got a tax refund.
Yeah, most
And it'd be great to have an additional tool. I think that's something that if they decide to leave that part in the bill, that's probably somewhat helpful for municipal courts. But what they find to be pretty incentive-based is taking the license away. Yeah. I'm not sure if that answered your question. I'm hoping that it did. I'm not sure the time frame, but it doesn't happen instantly. You don't get a traffic offense. If you appear in court, you're probably not going to have your license suspended. It's when you don't appear in court, and that's usually a process that takes at least 60 days. I'm not sure what the minimum of that is, but I could check into that if you'd like.
And this is a statewide?
This would be a statewide.
That would be good to have it be consistent. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move that we take a position of opposition to House Bill 171162.
All right, I'll second that. Let's vote. That passes 7-0. All right, I guess we're on to general business.
Mayor, you have board and commission appointments, and Valerie Skitt, City Clerk, will lead you through that process.
Mayor Coombs and City Council, my name is Valerie Skitt. I'm your City Clerk. And right before this meeting, you had some interviews with applicants for a few of our vacant positions on boards. We received another resignation today from the Airport Advisory Board, and so there will be another position open, as well as those that were listed here. It was Leif Johnson. Mm-hmm. So you have ballots in front of you for the positions and the applicants that you interviewed. The first one is the Airport Advisory Board. You have a regular term member and an unexpired term with Charles Hunter. Unless you tell me otherwise, I'm assuming you're going to vote on the regular member for the longest term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Christensen voted for Charles Hunter. Bagley voted for Charles Hunter. Moore voted for Charles Hunter. Coombs voted for Charles Hunter. Santos voted for Charles Hunter. Peck voted for someone on the Callahan House Board. Yeah. Finley voted for Charles Hunter. Yeah. Peck voted for Charles Hunter, so that's unanimous. Charles Hunter will receive the full term ending December 31st, 2019. Now on to the Callahan House Board. We have one position with a term ending December 2019 and one applicant, Janet Peterson. Bagley voted for Janet Pearson. Christensen voted for Janet Pearson. Moore voted for Janet Pearson. Coombs voted for Janet Pearson. Santos voted for Janet Pearson. Finley voted for Janet Pearson. And Peck voted for Janet Pearson. So Janet Pearson will receive that vacant term of December 31st, 2019. Then Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. You have three positions with three applicants. You can vote for three members at once if you like. You can vote for up to three of those. He currently is? Okay. Karen just told me that she thought Brian Kopman was on the BEA, so I will have to check that out. Oh, he prefers this board, is that, okay. All right, thank you. So Christensen voted for Brian Kopman, Alvaro Pineda, and Elizabeth Wolf. Moore voted for Kopman, Pineda, and Wolf. Bagley voted for Kopman, Pineda, and Wolf. Coombs voted for Kopman, Pineda, and Wolf. Finley voted for Kopman and Wolf. Santos voted for Kopman and Wolf. And Peck voted for Kopman, Pineda, and Wolf. So there were 4 votes for at least all 3 of them, so they will all 3 get the positions. Okay. Master Board of Appeals, no applications were received, so you're now voting for planning and zoning. There's 1 position and 2 applicants for that particular board. Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Peck voted for Jeffrey Check. Finley voted for LaWinda Clements. I better write these. Coombs voted for Jeffrey Check. Santos voted for LaWinda Clements. Christensen voted for Jeffrey Check. Moore voted for Jeffrey Check. Bagley voted for Jeffrey Check. Jeffrey Check received 5 votes, so will become our next Planning Commission member, the term ending 2018. And then Senior Citizens Advisory Board, you have 1 alternate position and 1 applicant. Too much exercise.
No.
Okay. Hey, we have, let me mix these up a little bit. Let's see. Bagley voted for Carol Hiepke. Am I saying that right? Okay. Coombs voted for Carol Hiepke. Santos voted for Carol, I'm sorry? Hepke, thank you. Hepke. Finley voted for Carol Hepke, and I apologize, Carol. Peck voted for Carol Hepke. Christensen voted for Carol Hepke. And Moore voted for Carol Hepke, so that's a unanimous vote. We did mention in the communication that we would not reopen just for these vacancies right now. We've checked with all of the boards, and they aren't having a quorum problem because we start our mid-year applications period in a month, and so we'll just roll these into that unless you direct us otherwise.
All right, I think that's a good plan.
Mayor Coombs.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Visit Longmont Board, Sean. The Visit Longmont Board had a resignation, soon to be resignation, with the museum director leaving us to go to Washington State. I'm not even going to say, no, Wes is leaving the city, so he was the city council appointment. Is that coming in the next, the request from Visit Longmont regarding that position?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Santos, yes, we were planning on bringing that in the first meeting in March to get an appointment. It would be an interim appointment to fill Wes's position until the permanent museum director is hired. At that point, I think Visit Longmont would like for that person to become the city's representative to that board, one of the city's representatives.
Right. It's Visit Longmont's wish to have, the interim appointment come from the museum, so the museum has representation on the board. So, and I believe that when we get that information, I'm just stressing that that's from the board itself.
Right, and at this point, staff will be recommending that the interim museum director, which will be Eric Mason, fill that role until such time as a permanent museum director is hired.
Okay, now it's time for final call. Public invited to be heard. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to come and speak at this time?
Hi. I have to respond. I totally understood that you weren't writing a check for $6.5 million. But I also understand that if the same energy that goes into Smuckers went into the airport, we would get sort of an equal return on our investment for the city and for the airport. It is an enterprise zone, and we'd like to make it a better one. But that's. But my point tonight, yeah, I'm interested in that. But my point really was still the same. You really need to understand what these people make, and Councilman Santos, you can't do that.
You can address the chair, but not individual council.
Oh, okay. I'll address the chair. If you all haven't read the ingredients and the food value of this product, you really should. Because I'm certain that 1 carrot has more value than a whole box of these. 1 apple is hugely more nutritional, and a little bit of salad and maybe a small bit of fish would even be better. I'm not contentious. I understand totally what you're doing, but
Right.
You fight fracking tooth and nail. The food problem in America is far greater than fracking, believe me. Thanks.
Thank you.
You really ought to try these.
Now it's time for mayor and council comments. Well, first off, I guess I would kind of, my personal opinion is I probably wouldn't buy that product, but I don't make everybody can make their own decision on how to eat and when I. So that's not, necessarily government's role, but I, personally, I agree with a lot of things that you, Mr. Krenzel, said tonight in terms of healthy eating. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'd like to have a business of the week. Several of us went to the St. Vrain's Cidery last evening for Innovation Week, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'd never had cider before, and it was quite tasty. They are a craft hard cider company, an all cider tap house, and 24 taps of hard cider made from cideries all over the state. Ciders are all gluten-free, made from apples, very healthy. It's at 350 Terry Street, and if you haven't tried it, you should give it a try. Very tasty, St. Vrain Cidery.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I would like to let people know that El Comité is having their fundraiser dinner Saturday night, the 25th, and it's going to be at the Evangelical Lutheran Church on Terry Street, the corner of Terry and I think it's Kaufman. Yeah. I'm sorry, 3rd and Kaufman. Oh boy, long night. And I also would like to know that the El Comité does a lot of really good things for our community. They give citizenship classes. They have immigration lawyers. They help people find jobs, work through getting driver's license. The list just goes on and on. So it's we really do need to support this in our community. Thank you.
I want to jump in and give kudos to Robin's Chocolate. They've made Valentine's Day a big hit for our family. We send boxes to our daughter, and it is actually the really, really great chocolate. If you're going to eat junk food, Robin's Chocolate is once in a while on Valentine's Day. All right, anybody else? All right, City Manager, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City Attorney, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.